What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Retro Cup with a triple shiny shadow team of Dragonair, Gallade, and Machamp. And for Machamp specifically, it seems like everyone has forgotten just what this Pokemon is capable of. Now the moveset PV Poke recommends is Cross Chop and Rock Slide, but I'm using it as a closer, so I want the ability to nuke basically everything in this meta, and with Dynamic Punch and Payback you can do exactly that. Also, it's been many years since this community day, so a lot of people just weren't expecting the Payback, and as a result, Machamp kind of turned into a Psychic type Slayer. Now this video is a little bit shorter than usual because even though I really enjoyed using the team, the game state about halfway through my sets became completely unplayable on the new code. I wasn't just missing a single turn at the start of battles, I was missing 3, 4, 5 turns basically every single time a charge move was thrown, and so my final couple of sets are pretty much unwatchable, so we'll just have to make do with slightly fewer battles today. But anyways, before we get into the question of the day, I want to give a quick shout out to Fungus Master for the donation in yesterday's live stream. As always, the support is very much appreciated, and with that being said, let's now finally get into the question of the day. What is your favorite shiny shadow Pokemon that you've caught based purely on aesthetics? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shiny Shadow Dragonair into Crustle. Now the opponent is going to be swapping out straight away into Licky Licky, and so I respond with my Machamp. Now running Dynamic Punch, most opponents probably going to no-shield the first move, but that gets the clean one-shot there. The opponent probably expecting to live a Cross Chop. Now the opponent is thinking about what to do. They're going to come back in with a Hypno, but we do have access to Payback, and the opponent probably committing to a full fast move farm down. They should really respect the damage here, but the opponent doesn't shield the Payback. We get the one shot. That was literally my first battle with this team, and the opponent just wasn't ready for Shadow Machamp, and so they concede the match. So GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Regidrago in the lead. I'm going to farf a wrap. It looks like we will be winning CMP in this matchup. However, I'm not entirely sure if that was a CMP tie. I don't think it was, but either way, we're able to grab a shield, and so at this point, I'm happy to let the Dragonair go down. Vice Grip is going to get the KO there. We can now come in with the Shadow Machamp, and because we've debuffed their defense, I should be able to shield once hit. Even if they do bait with another Vice Grip, I should now be able to go for a full Karate Chop farm down and come out with another Payback loaded. They're going to come straight in with a Grumpig, and it's going to be the same result here if they don't shield, and the opponent once again not respecting the damage. They're going to have a Lapras in the back, and that should be game over. Of course, Dynamic Punch should be threatening the final shield from the opponent, but I've got a Shiny Shadow Gallade in the back where the opponent will be reaching one charge move, but even if they've got back-to-back moves already, it does not matter. We've got the Close Combat locked and loaded, ready to throw. Close Combat takes out the Lapras, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Girafarig in the lead. Now, this team is quite weak to confusion users, especially something like a Shadow Girafarig with Psychic Fangs, which is just going to debuff my defense because, of course, Machamp really going to struggle. Gallade, whilst it is going to take neutral damage, is not really going to be able to apply any fast move pressure whatsoever, so Dragonair is really my only real response. But either way, we're going to go for back-to-back Aqua Tails, able to outpace them here and grab both shields from the opponent. At this point, Gallade can tank a single Psychic Fangs, but the opponent swaps into Kingdra, but it doesn't really matter. We've already got the Close Combat. Close Combat! All shields are down. Easily gets the one shot there. Their final Pokemon, gonna be a Crustle, and so I swap into my Machamp. I'm able to reach a Dynamic Punch straight away here. Dynamic Punch doesn't quite get the KO there. That is quite unfortunate for me. And here, this might seem like a strange play, but I'm actually going to shield the Rock Wrecker. What I don't want to do is allow the Girafarig to maybe farm down my Gallade here, whereas, of course, if I force them to throw, now, of course, they can't go for a Psychic Fangs first. Confusion's not dealing enough damage, and so I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Oranguru in the lead this time around, and the opponent is going to outpace me here. Well, I mean, I could throw straight away if I go for a wrap here, but of course, that is quite risky up against a Confusion user, because if they don't throw straight away, then of course, I let a full fast move in for free. Now, I go for a wrap there. I was hoping that I would reach an Aqua Tail as well. Maybe in the future, I should just go for back-to-back Aqua Tails, but the opponent's going to swap into a Credilli, and once again, this is where Dynamic Punch is going to be very nice. The opponent probably expecting to live the Cross Chop there, but Dynamic Punch gets the KO. But unfortunately for me, it is going to be an ABA style team with the double normal and confusion Pokemon, and unfortunately Shadow Gallade is just really going to struggle here. Now I should let the first move go through because of course Psychic Fang is going to deal the least amount of damage. Now that of course I am debuffed, I'm going to do more it's going to do more damage now, but to be honest it doesn't really matter. Oranguru comes back in, they can go for a Brutal Swing after the double debuff, easily takes out the Shadow Gallade, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Oranguru in the lead once again. So we did mention in the previous battle, potentially would learn from that last battle that instead of going for the wrap, I will instead go for back-to-back Aqua Tails. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go for the first one here, making sure to throw on good timing once again. We can go for 3 more Dragon Breaths, fire off Aqua Tail number 2, and we can actually grab a shield advantage in this matchup. Now, we don't need to wait out our switch clock, but I am just thinking about what I want to do here, because of course, if we came in with the Machamp, Brutal Swing would be resisted, but that would kind of force them to go for Trail Blades. However, the opponent does go for Trail Blades anyways. Either way, I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Leaf Blades before firing off a charge move. I don't expect a shield here. The opponent just going to let it go down, and now they're going to come in with a Dusclops. So of course, this is not a great matchup for the Shadow Gallade, but we do have a lot of energy. And honestly, with the Psycho Cut damage, we've already put them into the yellow health range here with a single Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade number 2 grabs the final shield, and that is huge for me because Leaf Blade, whilst it would have done decent damage there, it would never put them into Karate Chop farm down range as it's double resisted. Now the opponent's going to fire off back-to-back Shadow Punches here. The second one, of course, all shields are what the hell? All shields are down. It's going to deal some decent damage there, but their final Pokemon is going to be Credilli, and that is huge for me because Dynamic Punch once again gets the one shot, and we're just one away from the payback. And payback also super effective here. Going to be taking out the Dusclops, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Dragonair into Kingdra. So, this is going to be a neutral matchup here. The opponent will be able to outpace me here to a Swift, and they will fire off that Swift straight away. But this is fine. I can actually tank this relatively comfortably. Well, not that comfortably, but enough to tank it and reach a Wrap here. And Wrap might grab a shield. No, not going to get a shield there. The opponent is going to swap out of that matchup and into Golisopod. Now, this is a little bit tricky here for me. If we did have Rock Slide on our Machamp, it would be a lot more comfortable because Machamp is going to resist the Fury Cutter damage, and Rock Slide would hit for super effective, whereas here we have to come in with the Gallade, which Leaf Blade and Psycho Cuts are going to hit for neutral damage, but unfortunately it's not quite enough damage to put them into farm down range. So here I am going to look to double shield, and then I'm actually going to swap into my Machamp and go for the Karate Chop farm down. But the opponent's going to come in with their final Pokemon, a Ferret, which is actually a great matchup for me. However, this is probably a scenario where I do wish I had Cross Chop because, of course, all shields are still in play on the opponent's end. They're going to be shielding everything, which means I would prefer to be able to spam charge moves, whereas now, unfortunately, I have to throw as soon as I get there. But, of course, I'm so low that the opponent, realizing that's the easiest catch of their life, and now they can come back in with the Ferret. I needed back-to-back charge moves. I'm not going to get there in time. Swift gets the KO. They can actually Sucker Punch, farm down the Machamp, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Kingdra in the lead this time around, and once again I should still be able to live a Swift, just barely. However, it gets me super low to the point where I wouldn't have reached a ramp, but the opponent actually swaps out and catches an Aqua Tail onto Licky Licky, which is, I guess, probably slightly better for me. Now the opponent is going to reach a charge move here. I'm going to no shield as this will just be a body slam, which is absolutely fine with me. I can now look to over farm here, and I'm thinking that maybe I can shield once and then commit to a full Karate Chop farm down. Now this is going to be super close here, but unfortunately Machamp not going to get that farm down. I'm forced to throw the energy. That is not ideal in the slightest, but let's see. The opponent comes back in with Oranguru, and wait a second here. My only win condition is if the opponent doesn't respect the damage and we get the one shot. This is still going to be a super close game, but the opponent, they have 2 shields, but they have no opportunity to use them. I'm not going to throw any more charge moves here. I'm actually going to shield the Swift. This is going to force the opponent to throw back-to-back charge moves here, and now Shadow Machamp should be healthy enough for 2 Karate Chops to get the full farm down before they can Dragon Breath farm me down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle, and we do have a slight team change here as I'm leading now with Latios, as I was really struggling up against the Confusion users in the lead, whereas Latios, of course, is at least going to resist the damage. However, it kind of puts me in an awkward position because if I safe swap and the opponent comes in with a Confusion user, double shields, farms me down. If it's something like Oranguru where they've got Brutal Swing, suddenly Latios is actually a worse Pokemon to have there, so it is still a bit tricky for us, but we're going to come in with the Latios. The opponent is going to have access to Silver Wind, which they throw. Then I'm going to swap out into a Fury Cutter Crustle, and Machamp should be able to tank anything. Of course, Rock Rocker will do huge damage. They go for X's, so that's still resisted, but it still does decent damage there. But we can now overfarm, fire off a Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch gets the KO from that range, and I should still be healthy enough to reach a Dynamic Punch into Luminion, and so I will overfarm as much as possible here. Dynamic Punch gets the knockout. The opponent comes back in with Sir Titan, and we are just one Dragon Breath away away from the Aura Sphere. This is super effective. Aura Sphere gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Kingdra in the lead once again. So, Kingdra seems to be like the most common lead in this meta, which makes sense because, of course, it only has 2 weaknesses, Dragon and Fairy is, of course, banned in this meta, so it's got pretty good play into the other dragons as well. So, of course, here, we're going to force a CMP tie. We barely hang on, so we might as well actually just swap out there into my Shadow Gallade, and they're going to come in with Araquanid. Now, once again, unfortunately, Leaf Blade will not be enough damage to 2-shot them here, but it is going to deal decent damage, so I will fire off the second Leaf Blade straight away. Leaf Blade number 2 is actually going to grab a shield, and the opponent will throw a Bubble Beam. Now, I should live the Bubble Beam here, however, unfortunately, this will put me into range where they can Bug Bite farm me down, which, of course, not really ideal. But we're now going to come in with Shadow Machamp. They will reach another Bubble Beam, and at this point, I have to start shielding. Bubble Beam going to drop my attack there, so what I'm actually going to do is look to swap out Bank the Energy. I'm not trying to catch a charge move or anything, I'm just hoping that now a Dynamic Punch would KO. However, I still wasn't quite confident that it would, and so I do end up full sending the payback. They come back in with the Kingdra, forcing my energy. It just depends what they've got in the back here. Dynamic Punch gets the KO. Their final Pokemon gonna be a Sliggoo. I'm committing to payback, which I do believe will do more damage than the Dynamic Punch, but is it enough? No, unfortunately, just barely not enough damage there. Sliggoo Dragon Breath farms me down, and we lose that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see Lunatone in the lead, which is actually a really strong Pokemon in this meta, and it's something that I probably will take a look at as well, if I can be bothered to play in the Retro Cup with how bad the new code is feeling right now. But either way, we go for the Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere going to be shielded. I'm now going to look to swap and catch the next Weather Ball onto my Shadow Gallade, and we should be able to outpace them to a Leaf Blade. But I'm actually going to wait one turn there. I think I waited one turn. Leaf Blade is now going to force a CMP tie. So at this point, I'm going to look to no shield here. Weather Ball will get the knockout, and I will come back in with my Latios. I'm going to look to overfarm just a little bit here, fire off the Aura Sphere, which of course all shields are now down. Aura Sphere will be getting the KO. The opponent's going to come in with a Shelgon. I'm confident that we can reach a Luster Purge at the last second, and we just barely get there. Luster Purge gets the knockout. Their final Pokemon is a Ferret, and that's game over, and so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, I can see Shadow Celio in the lead. So we're going to swap into our Shadow Gallade, and we're met with an Oranguru. So this is kind of the scenario I was talking about, where if we swap into our Gallade and the opponent ends up double shielding, unfortunately that puts my Latios in a really bad position. But the opponent is actually going to fire off a Brutal Swing. Honestly, I probably should have just no-shielded there, but instead, I'm going to look to shield here, look to grab both shields from the opponent, which I'm able to do. However, Oranguru is now loaded on energy, which means they can fire off one Brutal Swing. I'm probably going to have to let one of these moves go through, so I will shield the first one here, but the opponent is going to reach a second Brutal Swing. Now, I'm expecting the opponent to swap back into their lead. The opponent is, well, not going to do that, unfortunately for me, so that read completely backfires, and now we're taking huge damage from the confusions. I can at least get the KO with a Dynamic Punch there, but the opponent comes back in with the Celio. Yeah, really bad read on my end, which is unfortunate for me, but either way, Body Slam, gonna get the knockout there. We come back in, we can at least reach an Aura Sphere here, and hopefully, basically, the only thing we can be in the back is going to be something like a Credilli on Bullet Seed, and wait a second, we have a chance here. Is this enough damage? It's super effective, but Credilli, super bulky, unfortunately, non-stab damage from the Aura Sphere is not quite enough to get the KO. Rock Team gets the knockout, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, going to see a Lumineon in the lead. So this is going to be a fine matchup for me in the lead here. Of course, Gusts are going to hit for neutral damage. I'm expecting the opponent to be running Silver Wind here. Now here, unfortunately, I tried to throw on CMP. Not really sure why I did that, because the opponent ends up getting a full Gust in for free, but then they swap into Ferret, and that is fine with me. Now, of course, we're going to come in with the Shadow Machamp here. Honestly, up against Ferret is a matchup where I probably do wish I had Cross Chop instead, because they're probably going to shield here, and because we don't have Cross Chop, we're not quite as spammy. Actually, never mind, they do end up no shielding. They're going to come back in with Lumineon. I should just barely live an Aquatail here, so I am going to no shield. They're at back-to-back charge moves, so I don't take the risk of going for this slight overfarm, just in case they did throw the next one straight away. Now, I'm going to come in with my Shadow Gallade as the opponent is already at another charge boost. So, of course, at this point, I will be looking to shield as the opponent fires off a Silver Wind there, which is quite a surprise. Then I'm going to swap out into their final Pokemon, a Kecleon, but we've got Close Combat. Close Combat easily gets the KO there, and now we can actually go for one more Psycho Cut. Fire off the Close Combat number 2. It's going to do more damage than the Leaf Blade, guarantees the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle, we see Oranguru in the lead here. So this is going to be a fairly awkward matchup on both ends because I am resisting the confusion damage, but as you can see, they're still doing more damage than I'm dealing with their Dragon Breath pretty much. So at this point, we're going to fire off the Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere is going to be no-shielded by the opponent, and so I'm actually going to swap out and catch a Brutal Swing, where it's resisted onto my Machamp. So Brutal Swing, of course, not going to deal too much damage, but they've got a Shadow Annihilate in the back, and unfortunately, there's just nothing we can do here. The opponent is going to throw straight away, so at this point I will just let the move go through there. No point going for a Dynamic Punch on CMP because if they didn't throw straight away, then I wouldn't threaten the shield and the opponent would be able to just fully fast move farm me down. Whereas now we can come in with the Shadow Gallade, fire off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to grab a shield, and now I'm also going to look to use my final shield. So the opponent fires off the Rage Fist. I'm going to try and swap out, make the catch here, and then of course try and commit to a farm down with my Shadow Gallade. Rage Fist gets the knockout. The opponent not going to allow the farm down, instead coming in with a Kingdra. And at this point, honestly, I shouldn't bait. Baiting doesn't really get me anywhere because I wouldn't reach a Leaf Blade and a Close Combat anyways, whereas if I full sent it, of course, we probably still lose regardless because, of course, they could just come in with the Oranguru, confusion, farm me down. But either way, baiting just did not help me there. But GG to a trainer into possibly the final battle of this video, leading into a Primeape, so a fine lead matchup for me. The opponent is going to be swapping out into Ferret, and once again, we're going to come in with our Machamp. Now, again, unfortunately, because I'm not running Cross Chop here, I'm actually probably going to lose this matchup. So I do farm up. I'm hoping I can get off back-to-back Dynamic Punches here, expecting the opponent to use both their shields, but that's okay with me. So, of course, Dynamic Punch number 2, going to grab the final shield there. And I still got 2 Pokemon that do pretty well up against the Primeape, so it's not the worst case scenario to lose switch advantage here. We're going to come in with the Shadow Gallade, and I'm just going to go straight for that Leaf Blade. Of course, there was the risk that the opponent tries to catch the charge move, but they don't. They stay in with the Ferret, and that's fine with me. Then now I'm going to come back in with the Primeape. I probably lose CMP here, so I'm actually just going to opt for the extra fast move instead. Rage Fist, going to grab the final shield. They swap out straight away there, maybe expecting me to go for a Leaf Blade, but of course, this just means I can overfarm. Close Combat gets the comfortable one shot there, and we've also got a Leaf Blade locked and loaded. Leaf Blade will be taking out the Primeape, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.